Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Sherry Croce. It's 10 o'clock and we want to be very cognizant of your time. However, we've got a lot of people starting to come into it, so I'm going to basically kill just about another minute and then we'll start the webinar. We appreciate all of you coming. So you do have an opportunity if you want to go run and get a cup of coffee, because we will start at 10:02 as we let in a lot more people to the webinar.
The second deal, we admit all of them.
Eric Patterson and I are sitting here and we see a lot of familiar names, so that's great. And then we see some new ones. So we look forward to meeting you. Well, it is 10:02, so let's go ahead and start. For those of you that have just joined us, my name is Sherry Croce. I'm the Executive Director of the Honorable Order of Kentucky Colonels. And today we are happy to host this webinar to kick off the 26 grant cycle. Joining me today is Eric Patterson, our grants administrator.
Good morning, everyone.
Before we dive into the details of this year and the changes, we want to start with a short 6-minute overview of our guidelines. So, Eric, you want to kick that off?
Yep, let me get it pulled up here.
Hey everyone, if you're running a nonprofit in Kentucky, you know that finding the right funding can feel like a full-time job. So today, we are going to break down the Kentucky Colonel's 2026 Good Works program piece by piece to help you figure out if this grant is the perfect fit for your mission.
So, if you're out there in the Commonwealth looking for a grant to really boost your services and make a bigger impact, you are in the right place. Let's dig in and see if this is the one you've been waiting for.
We've set this up like a frontal, and that's on purpose. It's to save you time. We're going to hit the biggest, most important questions first, so you'll know right away if you should keep going. We'll start with eligibility, then what they actually fund, how to apply, and wrap up with those all-important rules and deadlines.
Okay, let's get right to it. Before you spend a single second filling out forms, we have to talk eligibility. This is gate number 1. It's the most important one, so let's see if your organization has the key to get through. All right, let's do a quick fire checklist. You got to be a 501c3, mainly serving folks in Kentucky, and you have to be the one actually using the funds. Now, look closely at that IRS exemption date. For most, it has to be before 2021. But, and this is a great little detail, if you're a newer organization, they give you some leeway pushing that date up to January 1st, 2025. If you're nodding your head yes to all of these, that's awesome. You've just cleared the first big hurdle.
Now, just as important is knowing who this grant is not for, to avoid wasting your time. So, generally speaking, it's not for government agencies, universities, or school groups like PTOs or booster clubs. This really tells you that their focus is squarely on those community-based nonprofits doing the hands-on, direct service work.
Okay, awesome. You've passed gate 1. Your organization is eligible. Now for the next big question. Does your project fit? This is gate 2. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of what the Kentucky Colonels are looking to fund.
So, here it is, maybe the most important takeaway of this whole thing. This grant funds things. It doesn't fund general operating costs. Think about tangible items your clients can actually use, or specific services they can directly benefit from. It's not meant to cover your day-to-day running costs like salaries, rent, or marketing.
And this slide really nails the whole philosophy of the Good Works program. They want to buy this stuff you need to do your work, not pay for overhead. So when you're thinking about what to ask for, think physical. Think equipment for your community kitchen, supplies for an after-school art program, things like that. Now let's talk real numbers, because the details matter. When you're putting your budget together, you have to stick to their limits. For instance, if you need a laptop, the absolute maximum they will fund for one computer is $1,000. Knowing these caps ahead of time is absolutely key. And what about those really big ticket items, like a new van for your organization? Well, think of the Colonels as a major funding partner. They can give you a huge boost, but their contribution is capped at $20,000. So what does that mean for you? It means you'll definitely need to show that you have other funds lined up to cover the rest of the cost. Okay, so you're eligible, and your project is a perfect fit. Now what? Let's walk through the actual how-to of applying. The process is pretty straightforward, but you've got to follow each step exactly.
It all starts with something simple, a letter of intent, or LOI. First, you'll email that to them. Then, once they give it a look, they'll email you back with a unique access code. That code is basically your golden ticket to get into the full online application portal.
Now, your letter of intent doesn't need to be some epic novel, but it absolutely positively has to have these 4 things. It's got to be a signed letter on your official letterhead. It needs your establishment date, your EIN, and just a quick, clear summary of who you are and what you're hoping to fund.
You know, what I think is really smart here is how the application process changes depending on what you're asking for. It's not a one-size-fits-all deal. You can see that the bigger your grant request, the more documentation, specifically the more price bids, you're going to need to submit with it. And listen up, because this is a super important detail that can easily trip people up. When it's time to provide your price bids, they have to be actual documents. We're talking a formal quote from a vendor or a saved PDF of a web page. Just pasting a link or saying you got a verbal quote over the phone? Nope, that's not going to cut it. We're in the home stretch. We've made it to the final section, the little details that can honestly make or break your application. So let's lock in on the key rules and deadlines that you just can't afford to miss.
Okay, time to pull out your calendars. The whole thing kicks off with a helpful webinar in November, then applications officially open up on December 8th. Deadlines are staggered through January, depending on your grant size. The big day for notifications is in mid-June, and from there, you have until the end of October to get your receipts in for reimbursement.
Now, if there is one rule you absolutely need to burn into your brain, it's this one. This is a reimbursement-based grant. What does that mean? It means you do not get the money up front. You have to buy the items with your own organization's funds first, and then you submit the receipts to get paid back. This is a huge deal for your cash flow, so you have to plan for it. And that leads me to this warning, which I want you to hear loud and clear. This is straight from them. Do not, I repeat, do not buy anything for your proposed project before you get that official yes in mid-June. Any money you spend before that notification date is on you. It will not be reimbursed, period.
And in case you're wondering, is all this effort really worth it? Just look at this number. Last year alone, the Kentucky Colonels funded 333 different organizations all across the Commonwealth. We're talking millions of dollars going directly into communities. This program has a huge real-world impact.
So, there you have it. That's the complete roadmap. You know if you're eligible, you know what they're looking to fund, you know how to apply, and you know all the key dates. So really, the only question left is, what amazing project are you going to ask them to support?
And of course, if you get stuck on a specific question, please don't guess. Reach out to the grant team directly. That's what they're there for. They want to help you get it right. From all of us here, we wish you the very best of luck.
As you've probably realized, this is our part-time employee called AI. We ran our 2026 Good Works program guidelines through AI just on a whim to see what was produced. And it's a pretty good video of it. Alibi, it's a little goofy, but there were some important details and clarifications, and we wanted to highlight those today. And as the Mr. AI said, the grants team at HOKC is actually just Eric Morgan. So FYI on that one. But if you have any questions right now, please drop it into the Q&A or chat session during today's webinar. And at the end, we'll cover those. And Eric will have a link of the recording of the Goofy video, but also this webinar on our website, so you all can go back and check that. But before we continue, I want you to know that the funding, as noted, the $2.5 million that went to 333 nonprofits in the Commonwealth this year in 25, was generously given to us by Kentucky Colonels, and that reside in every state of the union and 76 countries. I want you to know that they believe in your mission and know the annual contributions they make to Kentucky help Kentuckians and stay in Kentucky. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our grants team, aka Eric, to talk about how to apply.
As the video mentioned, starting on Monday, December 8th, you can email your letter of intent to me. But new this year, if you could please email your letter to grants@kykernels.org. I will review your letter within 48 hours, and once approved, you will receive an access code to access the applications in the online grant system. All applications can be accessed through your applicant dashboard after you log in. Click apply, enter the access code, and then selecting the correct application. A common question we get is if there's a deadline for the letter, and there isn't one, but sending it in earlier gives you ample time to complete the applications. The applications will also be available beginning December 8th, and there are different deadlines based on the total of your request. For grant requests of $10,000 or greater, the deadline is Friday, January 9th. For requests between $2,500 and $9,999, the deadline is Friday, January 16th. And for grants under $2,499, the deadline is Friday, January 23rd, 2026. All these deadlines on these dates are 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, if you are a new organization applying for the first time and have existed between 1 to 5 years, the deadline is the same as the small grants on Friday, January 23rd. These requests are capped at $5,000. We've spaced out these dates to ensure that every application gets the attention that it deserves during our internal review, and our advice is to submit well before the deadline and start gathering those crucial details for your request now.
Now, Eric's going to turn to the next slide. The video did a good job of reviewing our eligibility requirements, but please review this slide again and feel free to ask questions in, again, the chat or the Q&A. Eric, you want to turn to the ineligible slide? These are the types of organizations that we do not fund. If you are unsure about your organization's eligibility, now's the time to ask. You can type your question or you're welcome to call Eric after this webinar. If your application is approved, you will have until October 30th, 2026 to submit the necessary documentation for grant expenditures. Remember, our process is a reimbursement process, meaning we won't send reimbursement until we receive documentation for your grant. All items should be purchased between mid-June award date and October 30th. Anything bought before the grant notification will not be reimbursed. And we did have several nonprofits this year forfeit their grants due to purchasing items prior to being notified. If you need an extension due to unforeseen circumstances, such as roofers couldn't get to the repair, you couldn't get a contractor in, let us know before Wednesday, September 30th, 2026. Please note that there are very few exceptions are granted. Next slide, Eric. Recognizing the Kernels. So grant recipients are expected to acknowledge the Kentucky Kernels. We provide plaques, decals, signs, and vanity plates to make it easy. If you'd like to provide other recognition items such as stickers or t-shirts, please let us know for approval. We also recommend that your organization provide reciprocal recognition via your social media channels, newsletters, and media connections. For organizations who receive grants, we do provide a press release template following notification of the grant award that we recommend sharing with your organization's media contacts. We also may reach out to your organization for pictures or quotes to use in our social media channels or our newsletters, and have set up a follow-up form in the grant system for you to share this information after your grant is complete. PR for the Kentucky Kernels is very important because we know Kernels follow your organizations, and we want to show and highlight them how we're supporting.
We also wanted to briefly review a couple of common issues that we see when reviewing the applications. The most common issue that we see and get questions about is with the grant item request form and accompanying bids. As you all saw, the number of bids you need for your request depends on the total amount that you are requesting. In the application, we have included a guide with an example of grant item request form and some sample bids to guide you, but please reach out if you have any questions. I also wanted to remind everyone of the change that we made last year regarding the bids that are required. If your request includes bids for items that cost $20 or less, you only need to provide one bid per item and then provide the names of the other vendors researched. This applies to requests of any amount, and examples could include individual food items, art supplies, or other small items like that. Before you submit your grant item request form and uploading your bids, we recommend doing your homework. Make sure what you're asking for is what you need, and think about how these items will serve your organization in 7 months when the applications are approved. The other common issue that we see with applications often involves uploading incorrect or incomplete financial statements. We request your Form 990s and your organization's financial statements. For your 990s, we need your 2 most recent complete filings. We've seen in the past, sometimes only the first few pages or partial 990s are uploaded, but what we really need to see is the whole file, including all the schedules and attachments. As for your organization's financial statements, we will accept either an audit report or your organization's profit loss statements and balance sheets. If you are ever stuck with file sizes or unsure about what to provide, please reach out to us. And remember, submitting incomplete or incorrect financials could negatively impact your request. I did also want to add this year that we understand that there are times we know that you may be requesting this information from another individual in your organization who manages the financials. But before submitting your application, please verify that you are uploading the correct files, because we do commonly see incorrect files uploaded due to the file names being incorrect and not matching the file contents.
So at this time, we do want to be cognizant of your time. So we'd like to spend the rest of the time together answering Q&A questions. So Eric, you want to start at the top?
Okay. I'm going to start with the chat and kind of start from the beginning, make sure we cover all these questions. There's a question about what's required in the letter of intent. And we just request a really simple letter on your organization's letterhead signed. And include your organization's EIN number, brief description of your organization and project.
And the brief description could easily be 1 or 2 sentences.
Okay, looks like someone added in the chat. Thank you, Leanne, for adding in the grant email. Sorry, I'm looking for some additional questions here.
Here's a question about, can we email the LOI prior to December 8th? No, unfortunately, you can't.
There's a question about where to upload the Facebook post to. I would say there's a place to upload it, but I would just make sure to tag the Kentucky Colonels when you post it.
So there's a question about if the item you're requesting only has one company that makes that item. We certainly understand that. On the bid sheet, there is a free form where you can type that in to denote there's only one company that provides that item.
And then Anita, to answer your question about the executive organization changing, there's no need to update it from the letter of intent. I would just make sure when you're completing the application that we have the correct contact information for if we need to reach out to you.
Dawn, your question is, if we filed late but requested an extension and filed within that window, is that okay? Is that the filed late of your grant this year? I think you'll need to call Eric on that question, because I don't think we're clear on that. So I think it's Robin. No, it's Pete. Pete has a question is the max you can request 20,000? No, it's not. We have granted everything from $70,000 down to $800. What I will say is our average grants run between $6,000 and $12,000. We have had nonprofits this year and last year apply for $700,000, and it's not realistic. They never make it through the vetting process. So be realistic with the amount that we have historically granted.
Answer a question from Susan to define the new organization. That just, yeah, it relates to how long an organization's been in existence. So we do have that separate application for organizations who have existed between 1 and 5 years. And then Sarah asked if there's a specific cost needed for the project in the LOI. If you could just provide like an estimate, and certainly if that changes between that and the application, that's not a problem.
Priscilla, I think I just, your question is there a max request? I think I just reviewed that. And again, you're welcome to call Eric if you need more qualifications.
And I got a question about if you can submit multiple requests to cross the different applications. Each organization is only eligible to apply for one of the requests.
Catherine asked, and thank you for noting this question. Will organizations be asked to sit out from applying again? Yes, we will do that. And we set up a criteria list for nonprofits that we will ask to sit out for 1 year. You will be notified before December 8th on that, so you don't have to, if your organization is part of that criteria, so you don't have to apply. Again, it will come out December 5th to those organizations. It has to be approved by our board of directors, who has a meeting on December 5th.
Like Ellen asked about if they filed a 990 late with an extension, is that still okay? And yes, that's fine. We just ask that you provide your 2 most recent that are available. And if you applied for a grant in 2025, you are eligible to apply again in 26, as long as you don't receive an email from us that first week of December.
Don noted, asked a question about, do we partially fund a request? Yes, all the time we partially fund.
And then a question about the number of bids required. If your request is $10,000 or greater, there's 3 bids that are required. Grants between $2,500 and $10,000, 2 bids are required. And then under $2,500, only but 1 bid required. And there's a question about screenshots from Amazon. That's still something that you all can do. Screenshots from website we can't accept as bids, as long as we can see what you're requesting and then how much it costs.
There's a question about requesting, is it better to request a larger piece of equipment or itemize smaller supplies? I can't make that call. You'll need to decide for your organization which is more important. As you might have heard during our AI video, we want to make sure we fund needs, not wants. So please keep that in mind.
A question about if a project has 2 parts, would we fund partial? That is possible, that the trustee who review your grant could choose to fund one of the projects and not just flat out reject it.
So there's a question about ineligible to apply that we'll find out December 5th. Is that pertinent to specific 25 grantees? It can be specific to 2025 grantees. You will find out on the 5th. Traditionally, the criteria is, but it might be changing, so you can't take this as written in stone. The traditional criteria is you have been funded at least 3 years in a row, receiving over $20,000, have a budget of $1 million or more, and have at least 5 full-time employees. But let me stress again, this is going to be discussed at our December 5th meeting, so that is not written in stone.
There's a question about how quickly LOIs are reviewed. Typically within 1 to 2 days. Usually it's a lot quicker than that, but definitely by a day or two.
There's a question about what types of organizations will be asked to sit out. I just gave you a running criteria that we have had over the last several years. Again, I stress that might be changing this year, so they're not a particular type of organization.
There's a question about where you could see past projects that have been funded. We don't have anything like that on our website, but certainly through our social media page, we're constantly highlighting different nonprofits and what the grants are for. But generally, it's just any type of tangible item that the nonprofit needs.
It has been everything from kitten incubators to bedding for horses to handicap ramps to food for food pantries to medical supplies to restoration of artwork.
But I did want to clarify that the bids are needed with the application, not after the funding is approved. There's a question about how to provide bids for a van. We just ask that you provide maybe like a screenshot from a website or something from a dealer to show the current vans that are available and the price range. And we certainly understand that those exact vehicles most likely won't be available when the grants are awarded.
And we have funded several used van or transportation equipment.
The webinar is being recorded for you to watch after this for anyone who missed the beginning.
Eric is putting in the email address for the letter of intent, so you'll see that posted. There's a question about, do you fund organizations with a budget over 7 million? Yes, we have funded organizations that way. I will say that what is very scrutinized by the trustees who vet the grants is your unrestricted investment accounts or endowments.
There was a question if we have any document with some of the limitations for the items, such as laptops and vehicles, and those limits are included within our guidelines, which I'll provide the link to the documents again, which you can download and see those limits.
I don't know, Gino. Your question is, will the Q&A be with the video we're going to provide? That's beyond my technical capabilities. Eric?
I don't think the written section of the Q&A will be available, but definitely our answers to the questions will be included with the recording.
There's a question about a physical building need that is essential to serve our clients. Are we eligible to submit an application for a capital need? We don't do capital campaigns. However, if you have a building that you need certain types of chairs for your clients, or you need certain type of desks or filing cabinets specifically for your clients, or a handicap ramp, handicap doors, that would be considered a way you can fund.
There's a question about an organization with federal funding that was cut, that'll be different than what the 990 will show. There's a question on the application that allows you to kind of provide some explanation about your budget and 990. So that's where I would include maybe some of that information.
Mary's asked a question about they serve both Kentucky and Indiana. Yes, you can apply for a grant, but it has to be specific for the Kentuckians, not for both states. And we've certainly funded, like Cincinnati Smiles is a dental nonprofit, and we've helped them with their Northern Kentucky clients. There's a question about unrestricted investments and endowments. There is not a criteria our threshold, but I do know that the trustee who will vet that grant, if it makes it to that level, will ask quite a few questions on why not using that grant. We have internally discussed, is there a criteria such as if you have a $30 million unrestricted investment account, do you really need our $6,000 or $7,000? But we have not, we want to keep it open. We have not set that criteria. I'm sorry that doesn't really help you, but that's the best I can answer. There's a question about, is compensating board members in any form considered a barrier or negative factor? Yes, it is. If you feel you want to apply, be prepared to address that with the trustee.
Someone asked about the application deadline slide, so I'll go ahead and pull that back up.
There's a question about if an organization applies for an amount larger than you can give, do you consider partial funding? We certainly do consider partial funding. Traditionally, you will get a question that says, we can only fund X number of dollars. Who are your other, where do you anticipate getting the other money for that? There's a question about requesting the building of a new facility. We have traditionally not done that. We have definitely funded buildings such as storage sheds, run-in barns for horses, but not a $10,000 towards building a brick and mortar facility, if that's what you're thinking of.
Yeah, and we've definitely funded items for new facilities that are being built, such as security systems or furniture, different things. Question about how many bids are required, and that does vary based on the application you're applying for. 3 bids are required for anything over 10,000, 2 bids between 2,500 and 10,000, and then 1 bid for under 2,500.
All of that is written in our guidelines, which are also on the website. There's a question about Imagination Library and mailing books to children. Can you apply for a grant to cover book cost? Absolutely. We have helped a nonprofit in Eastern Kentucky purchase books that are mailed to high school libraries. There's a question about new organizations. A new organization has to be in existence 1 year from receiving your EIN number, up to 5 years.
I'm scrolling through some of these Q&As. I think we already answered. I think some of them were in the chat as well.
Give us a minute. We're scrolling.
There's a question about the computers for staff and students. We are able to fund both, so you're welcome to request either.
There's a question about $1,000 cap on laptops. Yes, we will only fund $1,000. If you have a laptop that obviously costs more than that, we will only fund $1,000.
Question about bids from Amazon or Walmart. Please feel free to upload those bids as PDFs of the prices listed online. And then a question about Christian organization but serve all individuals. You all would be eligible to apply for a grant. Okay. There's a question about if program curriculum is considered tangible, such as a fee or cost per student to access curriculum. I know we funded program curriculum in the past. I would say maybe reach out to us after this to get more information about that. But I think it
has to be a very specific type of curriculum that deals with a type of student. So there's a question about, can we provide direct salaries for staff that provide direct services to clients. If that person is highly trained in a specific unique service, such as you have to have interpreters that you bring in for individuals with a hearing loss, we would consider that. It would not, we probably would not fund a salary for a teacher that works at a school unless they have specific training.
Question about equipment that would serve clients in multiple states but located not in Kentucky. I would say maybe follow up with us with specific information. I think it probably depends on kind of the percentage of how much is served to both Kentucky and the other state.
So there's a question about a youth advisory board. Would we compensate the youth for their time? Be okay? No, I don't believe we'll be able to fund that.
A question about funding two different types of things, such as laptops for staff or a physical program item. We would recommend maybe just focusing on one of those two items.
There was a question about covering medical cost, medical specialist for a client. I think you need to call Eric and let's talk about that. I think you're the Rose Garden, so give us a call and we'll talk about that. So there's a question about covering marketing needs for applicants for home ownership. We would not, there's a fine line on this one. So if you could call us, we have covered like pop-up banners. We have covered brochures that go to children in regards to safe social media. So we would not cover advertising for this program. So Lena, I think you need to contact us. We're checking one more place for we're checking one more place for questions. So there's a question, Kathy, if HOKC funded a project in the past, could be considered again. Yes, it would be considered again.
Okay, scrolling through the questions, make sure we didn't miss any.
If we have not hit your question, hit us again, because obviously we've covered quite a few questions. There's a question about a driveway security gate for a program. Yes, we have funded that before. There's a question about the organization's a 501(c)(3), but a new applicant to the program. There is not a limit to the grant. You're welcome to apply. There's a question about, can there be used equipment? Yes, definitely there can be used equipment because we know the cost of brand new sometimes outweighs any way to purchase it.
Question about if the $1,000 cap applies to all technology, and that only applies to any laptops or other computers. It doesn't apply to like tablets or translator devices.
There's a question, can you be approved one time only, or can you apply yearly? You certainly can apply yearly.
Question about if there is a cap. There isn't a set cap, but I would just, our average grants are between 8,000 to 12,000, and I would just kind of try to take that into consideration of how many grants we apply or award each year.
There was a question, and I think we'll get ready to wrap up. There was a question much earlier in regards to who did our goofy video, what AI, and it was ChatGPT.
Or it was Notebook LM.
No, never mind. It was Notebook LM.
Okay, looks like maybe we have one final question. Question about if an organization turns 5 years old in January 2026. Kind of pull back the slide. As long as it's before or kind of around, early January 2026, I think you all would qualify.
So if you have any, we've said this, if you have any questions, really feel free to call Eric or email Eric, and he'll get back with you soon as possible. There is one, I was waiting for this question. So, and can you do annual subscriptions for services? Is that allowed? Eric?
We do some subscriptions in certain scenarios. I don't think in your situation where for the security cameras, that's something that we would pay. But we've done some subscriptions for specialized education software or different things like that. But if you have any specific questions about a subscription, please reach out to us.
Well, at this point, we will close this webinar. Again, it will be online. Eric will send it to you all. And again, but our phone is always open to give us a call or email us. And I'll leave you with, I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and thank you for what you do with your clients.